they told us Femi wasn't ready. They told us he needed more time in NXT, more seasoning, more experience before stepping into the spotlight with the main roster's biggest names. They told us he was just another developmental talent who would get lost in the shuffle once he faced real competition. And last night, Femi walked into that backstage area and proved every single one of those doubters catastrophically wrong by doing what nobody thought was possible. He didn't just confront Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker. He didn't just stand toe-to-toe with two of the most dominant forces in WWE right now. He obliterated them. He destroyed them. He dismantled both men like they were nothing, like they were obstacles in his path that needed to be removed, and he did it with such ferocity, such brutality, such raw power that everyone watching had the same thought running through their minds: we just witnessed the arrival of WWE's next megastar. But here's what's really going to make your blood boil. Here's what's going to make you question everything you thought you knew about WWE's booking philosophy and their creative direction. They've been building Bronson Reed as an unstoppable monster for months, having him destroy legends, having him put people through tables and announcers' desks, having him stand tall as this force of nature that nobody can stop. And Bron Breakker, the golden child, the second-generation superstar, the man who WWE has been carefully grooming to be the next big thing, the heir apparent to the main event scene. Both of these men have been protected, both have been booked strong, both have been presented as guys who are on another level. And in one segment, in one backstage brawl, Femi made them both look like amateurs. He made them look weak. He made them look like they didn't belong in the same space as him. And the worst part? The absolute worst part that's going to have fans arguing in the comments for weeks? Some of you are going to love it and some of you are going to hate it, because WWE just sacrificed months of storytelling and character building for two of their biggest rising stars to put over someone that most casual fans barely know. Let me paint the picture for you, because if you missed this moment, if you blinked, if you weren't paying attention, you missed something that's going to be talked about for years to come. The segment started innocently enough. Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker were already in the middle of a heated confrontation backstage. These two have been on a collision course for weeks, the tension building, the near misses in the ring, the stare downs, all of it leading to what everyone assumed would be a massive singles match at the next premium live event. They were in each other's faces, doing what they do best. The testosterone was through the roof, security was trying to keep them apart, and you could feel that at any second this was going to explode into violence. The whole roster was watching, cameras were everywhere, and then the lights flickered. Just for a second, just long enough for everyone to notice, and when they came back on, he was there. Femi. Standing behind both of them like a nightmare made flesh, like some ancient warrior god who had been summoned from the depths of NXT to wreak havoc on the main roster. Now, for those of you who don't watch NXT religiously, let me educate you on exactly who Femi is and why his appearance in this segment is such a massive deal. Femi isn't just another big guy. WWE has had plenty of big guys over the years. They've had monsters and powerhouses and giants who looked impressive but never quite captured that special something that separates a good big man from a legendary one. Femi has that something. He's 6'5", 270 pounds of pure muscle and athleticism. He moves like someone half his size but hits like someone twice his weight. During his time in NXT, he's been absolutely dominant, holding the NXT North American Championship for over 400 days, defending it against everyone they put in front of him, and making every single one of those defenses look effortless. He has this presence, this aura about him that makes you believe he's special, that makes you believe he's different from everyone else. But here's where it gets interesting. Here's where WWE made either the smartest decision they've made all year or the biggest mistake that's going to haunt them for months. Bronson Reed turned around first. He saw Femi standing there, and for just a split second, you could see something in Reed's eyes that we haven't seen before. Not quite fear, but recognition. Recognition that he was looking at someone who might actually be on his level. Reed, being Reed, didn't back down. He stepped forward, got in Femi's face, started talking trash, doing that thing he does where he tries to intimidate people with his size and his presence. And Femi just smiled. That was it. Just the small, knowing smile that said everything without saying anything at all. Then Bron Breakker, not one to be left out, positioned himself next to Reed, and suddenly it was 2 against 1, two of WWE's most dominant forces staring down this NXT call-up who supposedly wasn't ready for this level of competition. What happened next was carnage. Pure, unfiltered carnage. Femi didn't wait for them to make the first move. He didn't talk trash or try to build drama. He just exploded into action like a grenade going off in a confined space. He grabbed Bronson Reed first, and I'm talking about a man who weighs over 300 pounds, and he just launched him like Reed weighed nothing. Threw him into a production crate with such force that the crate literally collapsed under the impact. The sound echoed through that backstage area like a car crash, and Reed crumpled to the ground in a heap. Bron Breakker, to his credit, immediately tried to capitalize, going for one of his signature spears, that move that has put away so many opponents. But Femi saw it coming. He sidestepped at the last possible second, and Breakker went crashing into the same area where Reed had just been thrown, adding insult to injury. Now both men were down, both men were hurt, and Femi was just getting started. He picked up Bronson Reed, deadlifted him off the ground in a gorilla press position, and just held him there. Held him there long enough for every camera to capture it, long enough for everyone watching to understand exactly what was happening. This wasn't a lucky shot. This wasn't a sneak attack. This was a statement. This was Femi announcing to the entire WWE roster that he had arrived and that the hierarchy that everyone thought they understood was about to be completely upended. Then he threw Reed down onto Bron Breakker, both men collapsing in a tangle of limbs in agony, and Femi just stood over them, arms crossed, looking down at them like a king surveying his conquered enemies. Security finally rushed in, about 20 guys trying to get between Femi and the two devastated superstars on the ground. But here's the thing that really drove home just how special this moment was. Femi didn't resist. He didn't fight the security. He didn't need to. He had already made his point. He let them escort him away, but he never took his eyes off Reed and Breakker. Even as he was being led down the hallway, even as medical personnel rushed to check on both men, Femi was staring back at them with that same knowing smile, that same confidence that told everyone watching that this wasn't a one-time thing, this was the beginning of something much bigger. The wrestling world immediately lost its mind. Social media exploded within seconds. Twitter was on fire with hot takes and reactions. Reddit threads were being created faster than moderators could keep up with them. YouTube channels started cranking out reaction videos and analysis pieces. Everyone had an opinion, and those opinions were wildly divided. One camp absolutely loved it, seeing it as the perfect way to introduce Femi to a larger audience, giving him instant credibility by having him demolish two legitimate stars. The other camp was furious, arguing that WWE just buried Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker, that months of careful character building had just been thrown away for a cheap shock moment, that this was typical WWE short-term thinking, sacrificing long-term storytelling for a viral moment. And you know what? Both sides have valid points, which is what makes this so fascinating and so frustrating at the same time. Let's start with why this was brilliant. WWE has a massive problem with call UPS from NXT. Almost every single time they bring someone up from developmental, that person loses all their momentum within weeks. They get lost in the shuffle, they're booked inconsistently, they're thrown into meaningless feuds, and before you know it, someone who was a dominant champion in NXT is losing to mid-carders on main event. It's happened over and over again. Karrion Kross, dominant NXT champion, came to the main roster and was booked like a joke until they released him. Ember Moon, incredible NXT women's champion, never found her footing on the main roster. The list goes on and on. So from that perspective, having Femi come in and immediately establish himself as a legitimate threat, as someone who can hang with and even dominate established stars, that's smart booking. That's WWE learning from their mistakes and giving a call up the rocket push they need to succeed. But here's the counter-argument, and this is where it gets messy. Bronson Reed has been on an absolute tear. The man has been destroying everyone in his path. He's put Rey Mysterio through tables. He's devastated Seth Rollins. He's been booked as this unstoppable tsunami, pun intended, that washes away everything in front of him. And in one segment, all of that protection, all of that careful booking, it's undermined. Because if Femi can just toss Reed around like a ragdoll, what does that say about everyone Reed has beaten? What does that say about all those impressive victories? It makes them feel less impressive. It makes Reed feel less special. And the same goes for Bron Breakker, a guy who WWE clearly sees as a future world champion, a guy whose last name alone carries weight, a guy who has all the tools to be a top guy for the next decade. Having him get obliterated by a call-up, even one as impressive as Femi, it raises questions about his positioning and his credibility. This is the tightrope WWE is walking right now, and it's fascinating to watch in real time. They need to make Femi feel important, feel special, feel like a game changer. But they also can't completely sacrifice the credibility of their existing stars in the process. It's a balancing act, and based on the reaction online, it's not entirely clear if they've found the right balance. What happens next is going to be crucial. If this leads to a triple threat feud between these three absolute units, if this sets up matches that deliver at the level they need to deliver, if all three men come out of this looking stronger rather than weaker, then in retrospect this moment will be seen as genius. But if Femi's momentum stalls, if Reed and Breakker just move on to other feuds without addressing what happened, if this becomes just another random backstage segment that doesn't lead anywhere meaningful, then the critics will be proven right and this will go down as another example of WWE's inability to properly execute long-term storytelling. The comparison that keeps coming up is Brock Lesnar's debut. When Lesnar first showed up in WWE, they had him destroy everyone. He beat up legends, he demolished established stars, he made grown men look like children. And it worked because they fully committed to it. They didn't do it halfway. They didn't try to protect everyone while also pushing Lesnar. They made a choice, they went all in on Lesnar being this once-in-a-generation monster, and it paid off because he became exactly that. The question now is whether WWE is going to fully commit to Femi the way they committed to Lesnar, or if they're going to get cold feet and start second-guessing themselves and watering down what could be a star-making run. There's also the racial element here that nobody wants to talk about but absolutely needs to be addressed. Femi is a black man with a distinctly African name and heritage, representing his Nigerian roots with pride. WWE's track record with pushing black wrestlers, particularly those who embrace their cultural identity, has been inconsistent at best. For every successful push like Bobby Lashley or Big E, there are countless examples of black talent being held back, being given stereotypical gimmicks, or just never getting the same opportunities as their white counterparts. The fact that WWE is seemingly going all in on Femi, giving him this massive moment against two established stars, one of whom is also a black man in Bronson Reed and the other who is the nephew of Rick Steiner and son of the legendary Rick Steiner, it's significant. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, WWE is finally ready to fully commit to pushing black talent to the top of the card without hesitation or qualification. But we've been burned before. We've seen WWE start to push black wrestlers only to pull back at the last minute, only to decide that maybe they should go in a different direction, only to find reasons why it's not the right time. So while I'm cautiously optimistic about Femi's trajectory, I'm also keeping my expectations in check because this company has a history of disappointing us when it comes to fully committing to diverse representation at the top of the card. If Femi becomes WWE champion within the next year, if he's main eventing WrestleMania, if he's getting the same opportunities and protection that white stars get, then we can call this a real turning point. But until that happens, until we see the full follow-through, I'm reserving judgment. What's undeniable, what nobody can argue against regardless of their opinion on the booking, is that Femi looked like an absolute star in that segment. Everything about him, from his physical presence to his facial expressions to the way he moved and fought, it all screamed main event player. This is not someone who's going to be lost in the shuffle. This is not someone who's going to be content being a mid-card guy. This is someone who understands their worth, who carries themselves like they're already the top guy, and who has the talent and charisma to back it up. The way he smiled at Reed and Breakker before destroying them, that wasn't the smile of a nervous call-up hoping to make a good impression. That was the smile of someone who knew exactly what they were capable of and was about to prove it to the world. The immediate fallout is going to be intense. Bronson Reed is not the type of character who's going to just let this slide. He's going to want revenge, he's going to want to prove that what happened was a fluke, that he's still the monster everyone should fear. Bron Breakker, with his competitive fire and his family legacy on the line, he's not going to accept being embarrassed like that. He's going to come back even harder, even more aggressive, determined to re-establish his dominance. And Femi, well, he's already established that he's not intimidated by either of them, that he sees them as stepping stones rather than obstacles. The potential for a three-way feud here is off the charts. Imagine these three behemoths in a triple threat match at a premium live event, just destroying each other, throwing each other around like action figures, delivering the kind of hard-hitting, physical spectacle that WWE audiences crave. But beyond the immediate feud, this moment has implications for the entire roster. Every single person in that locker room just saw what Femi did. They saw him dismantle two of the most protected stars on the brand without breaking a sweat. That changes calculations. That changes how people are going to approach him. Nobody's going to underestimate him now. Nobody's going to treat him like just another call-up. He's immediately jumped to the front of the line in terms of perceived threats, and that's going to affect booking decisions, storyline directions, and championship pictures going forward. If you're a current champion, whether that's on Raw or SmackDown, you just saw someone emerge who could legitimately be challenging for your title in the near future. That's both exciting and terrifying depending on your perspective. The timing of this is also worth noting. We're heading into the Royal Rumble season, that magical time of year when WWE starts building toward WrestleMania and when new stars can break out in a major way. Having Femi make this kind of impact right now positions him perfectly for a strong showing in the Rumble match itself. Imagine him entering the Rumble and just tossing people out left and right, racking up eliminations, looking like an unstoppable force. Even if he doesn't win, even if he's not the guy who's going to main event WrestleMania this year, a dominant performance in the Rumble would cement his status as a rising star and set him up for a major program coming out of it. That's the kind of long-term thinking and planning that WWE needs to embrace if they want Femi to reach his full potential. The comparisons to other dominant big men in WWE history are inevitable. People are already throwing around names like Batista, Bobby Lashley, and yes, even Brock Lesnar. Those are lofty comparisons, the kind that can create unrealistic expectations and set someone up for failure if they can't live up to them. But watching Femi in that backstage segment, watching how he carried himself and how he performed, those comparisons don't feel outlandish. They feel appropriate. He has that same aura, that same presence that the truly great big men have. He doesn't just look strong, he looks inevitable, like a force of nature that can't be reasoned with or stopped, only survived. That's a rare quality, and it's exactly what WWE needs right now to create new stars who can carry the company into its next era. Whether Femi becomes the next big thing or just another what-if story is going to depend entirely on how WWE books him over the next 6 to 12 months. They've given him the perfect launch pad. They've given him the momentum. They've given him the opportunity. Now it's up to them to not screw it up, and based on their track record, that's far from guaranteed. But for one night, for one segment, they got it absolutely right. They created a star-making moment that has everyone talking, everyone debating, everyone excited about what comes next. And in an era where it's increasingly hard to create genuine surprise and excitement in wrestling, that's an accomplishment worth recognizing even if we're skeptical about their ability to maintain it long-term.